Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live, and I'm Cyril Stover. Now, as part of its annual activities, the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, on January 25, released its 2023 climate prediction, given a general climate and weather forecast advisory during the year and the potential impact on diverse sectors of the economy. NIMET also predicted early rainfall, severe dry spell in northern, central states and Abuja. The agency, in its 2023 seasonal climate prediction, indicated that the rainfall onset date would be earlier than the long-term average in most parts of the country. Now, this year should draw the attention of government and key players in the environment sector, following the devastating floods witnessed in many parts of the country in 2022. Tonight, Tuesday Live will focus on the 2023 NIMET prediction and measures to contain a likely disaster. But before we go into the conversation, let's get to see this report put together by Musa Baba Aliu.
The first rain that dropped in Abuja was on 25th February this year. Since then, there has been frequent rainfalls not only in Abuja but in parts of Niger, Kaduna, Nasarawa and Kogi states. The Nigerian Meteorological Agency described the rain in the month of February in the north-central state as pre-onset. However, the season has commenced in coastal states.
The season is expected to range from 84 to 283 days. Abuja and surrounding states are expected to witness between 170 to 230 days of rain.
The agency cautioned that the season will be accompanied by thunderstorms, turbulence, lightning strike, strong winds, and heavy rainfall.
Our main mandate is to produce the forecast and the relay, and then we have also other enabling agencies. That is their own mandate to now translate this information into and then also get it implemented at the grassroots level.
NIMET said the weather condition could pose significant threats to the safety of lives and property and could also affect aviation industry. Consequently, NIMET assured pilots and airport users that it has installed weather monitoring systems and thunder detectors across the airport nationwide as a measure to mitigate the effects of thunderstorms on the aviation industry. In Abuja, Musa Baba Aliyu.
All right, that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let me start off by introducing our guests. I'd like to welcome to this program Professor Mansour Bako Matazu, Director General of NIMET, Nigerian Meteorological Agency. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Cyril, and good evening.
We're also joined tonight by a geologist, Kana Ahmed Abubakar. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Let me also welcome Shehu Maazu, who is the National Coordinator, Special Projects, Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Cyril. Good evening.
And also here tonight, we'd like to welcome Dr. John Tor Agwidie, Founder, CEO, In-Country Medicare. He's a neurotoxicologist and a regenerative medicine expert. Dr. Tor Agwidie, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Cyril. Good evening, viewers.
Right. Well, as you well know, at some point in time, this program would be interactive, but at that time, we'll remind you of the process and the procedure. But for now, let's go straight to the issues at stake as we begin to look at NIMET's predictions, the warnings, and how well these predictions have been heeded in the past and what we expect this year. But the 2023 seasonal climate prediction has informed Nigerians that the rainy season will commence early. Matter of fact, a lot of people were surprised when it started raining some weeks back, and chances are many people would say, well, the rains have started. But the report also indicates that there might be an early cessation in parts of the country. Also, farmers were given an advisory to hang on a bit, and that was not the onset, really, of the rains. But here you are, DG NIMET, and let's Let's expand more on that and tell us what it implies.
Thank you so much, Cyril, and good evening, Nigerians. As you rightly indicated, we have released this focus, being an election year, and also having come from 2022, which was quite very devastating in terms of flood. So, based on the presidential directive, we issued out the focus as early as January, which should give about the 3 to 5 months least time for the citizens and other ministries, departments, and agencies of governments to put all the information into good plan. It's also true that we've mentioned in the forecast that the season will start early, substantially in most parts of the country. And we've seen this starting as early as January in the extreme south and in February in some parts of Abuja. But when you look at the detail of our forecast, it indicates that for beginning of the rainy season is when you have well-established soil moisture that farmers can go to farm and plant for the seeds to germinate. So one component in our focus is the pre-onset activities of rainfall, and that is what we've seen in February in Abuja, and that is what we are seeing, pockets of rainfall activities which are extended during the election period up to Sokoto. But we know globally the atmosphere is interconnected and teleconnected, and certain weather phenomenon that passes over Europe can have some influence on our system, and that was what had happened. And this system had really finished the operation and passed part of Europe. So we're now back to our normal conditions. So what we've seen in the north is pre-season activities. And these pre-season activities are pockets of rainfall which are not enough for farmers to go to farm. And that was why we released our own advisories to farmers that, especially in the north central and extreme north, they should only go into land clearing, acquisition of inputs and other things. But for the south, the season has already commenced. We've seen a lot of even high intensity rainfall and storm damages in many parts of southwest and south-south. Generally speaking, as you made mention, the major component of the forecast is that we're going to have early onset, normal length of the growing season with some pockets of early cessation, which means shortened lifespan. But we are not scaring farmers or anybody about this because the detailed information contained in our focus give the number of rainy days. And if you access and have this information, you have access to extension officers or some of your agriculturists around can give you an idea of the type of seeds that you can go into. We have seeds that are drought resistant, having predicted a dry spell within June and July, mostly in the north central and extreme north. So all these things, by adopting to the advisories we provided in the forecast, farmers can really engage their activities in a climate smart manner. And with that, they will reduce the risks by more than 90%. We've seen that happening. And they can also get increased yield by about 30 to 35% by just simply obtaining this information we are providing.
Well, comprehensive enough, and that's the part that worries most Nigerians. Early start, early cessation in some parts, heavy rainfall with prospects of flooding, and then we still talk about dry spell in between. But we'll come to that. And I just want to go on to the geologist who is in our midst today. It would seem that the pattern has changed and everything now with the climate is gone, as they say, weird. People ask which way the weather now. What is responsible for this? It isn't as we used to know it, that everything had almost a smooth procession from start to finish in the rainy season and the dry season. Suddenly everything seems to have gone haywire.
Yes, thank you very much for that question. Actually, just like you said, it's almost like a cycle. Usually there is a certain cycle within the within the world cycle. Certain things repeat itself after a certain period of time. Just like in geology, there's what we call elasticity. There's a balance. As you add something this way, these sites, it affects these sites. So there's a natural phenomena generally. And then to go back to his own earlier presentation of the early rains, as a geologist, as a hydrogeologist, there are positives. The positive is that if you observe this year, there has been high heat based on even the NIMET prediction. Now, with the high heat, it leads to a lot of diseases. Then groundwater, it affects groundwater and then surface water recharge. Now, with the early rains now, the implication is that there is going to be early recharge, which will now be able to make the groundwater active. It will now going to give the aquifers more activity. Then having said this, if you could recall what happened last year when we had the flooding. And in the flooding, there are two nuisances. The excess water that causes the destruction, and then the unwanted waters, the water that has been deteriorated, they also percolated into the groundwater system, which as we speak, I'm not sure aquifer cleansing has taken place in some part of the country, especially down south, where their geology is sedimentary in nature. Up north, a lot of areas, you have basement complex, which is hard rock, so chances of percolating is lower. So these are some of the challenges between last year and now, and which is just about almost about 6 months cycle. So now the early rains could lead to dilution, so to speak, and it could be a positive kind of situation. Now the early rains again could lead to sort of siltation that has taken place in some areas. There are technologies whereby you can steer the river. So with this particular rains that has come earlier, it is easier for you to desilt and then the water, especially where you have a lot of clay materials. So these are some of the positives in terms of the geological, hydrology and hydrogeological aspect. And then to go further again, with the NIMET prediction and then the importance of it to national development. The National Council on Water Resources, 29th of which took place in Sokoto, has added climate change and then the importance of the prediction to a committee now. So this, I felt I should say it to reiterate that.
So some of
the issue of collaborations.
So some of the things we are seeing, if we recall what the DG NIMET said, that certain things in other parts of the world are capable of affecting it. So we might well be seeing the hand of climate change in some of these things that are happening right here. Well, we'll return to see whether we've taken this seriously enough or are we still lagging behind. But let's go to the farmers now, who, well, NIMET says, hold on a bit, in the north especially, this might not be it yet to plant. But are we listening to these predictions, and how do we use the predictions that come annually to the advantage of improving agricultural practice?
Mr. Cyril, honestly, as the DG has said, that we should hold on. We as an association were already talking to our farmers. We are telling them to please hold on, because as he said, it's a pre-season activity or a false start of the season. And honestly, listening to NIMET is like listening to science. And science is real. Climate change has come to stay. So we have no option as farmers but to listen. But the only thing we are doing is, we as an association, is a big job for us to do. Honestly, the state government and even the local governments has to come in. In fact, we need to go informal by bringing in the traditional institutions, the religious organizations into disseminating of this knowledge. If you go to every mosque in Nigeria today, you see the prayer timetable hanging. It's the same process that determines this. With that science that determines the seasonal rainfall prediction, is the same science that determines the prayer times. So if we agree with the prayer times, then it's very easy for us to tell the common man out there, as illiterate people, that look, this thing you are following to pray is the same thing that is telling you that this is the best time for you to start planting, and this is the right time for you not to do it. And I believe it will do. And just as he said, it's a good thing for us farmers because it's definitely going to reduce our losses. It's definitely going to help us prepare well onto what type of crop are we going to plant based on the length of the season, when are we to plant it, and so forth. In fact, we can even prepare for supplementary irrigation because of the dry spell that that has been predicted. So if there is a dry spell, it means we as farmers, we should prepare for irrigation, supplementary irrigation. If we can take that advantage and irrigate our land, supplement the rain with the irrigation activity, a lot of losses will be reduced and will enjoy higher productivity.
Right, thanks a lot. We'll return to you and find out about the other aspect of the prediction and how to be wary about what might happen. But Dr. John Toagbidi, you come in at this point because we have seen the effects of climate change. We've seen harsh weather, very hot temperature. We have had a steady rise in temperatures. In fact, people will tell you that it looks as if it's getting hotter every year. Mm-hmm. And even when it rains sometimes, the humidity is another thing to deal with. Well, people need to be healthy in order to carry out farming activities, in order to do all the things and to have a country. But let's look at how these predictions and how the weather can affect people generally and their well-being and health.
Yes, Siri, thank you very much for that background. You've given an excellent, background already, especially emphasizing on the point of, the heat that is brought about from the weather change. In the United States, today, from 2009 to 2019, they have documented that weather-related mortalities or death as a result of weather changes is about 600 people dying every year. And this number is more than any other of these, disasters except, hurricane or tornadoes that comes in volume. So, in general, the body is designed to function at a particular temperature. That is 36 to 37 degrees, centigrade. Now, when it becomes excessively hot, especially in this part of the world where we have 6 months of, we should supposedly, before the climate change, 6 months of, hot season and 6 months of, rainy season. Even that hot season should be moderate. But when you have escalated temperatures, you predispose to certain disease conditions. There is what we call heat stress. And just like you said, when you combine high temperatures with high humidity, it becomes very, very uncomfortable. Number one, it leads to a condition known as heat stroke. Generally, our body gets cooled when we sweat. When we sweat, we not only excrete, toxins, but the body cools down. But where there's excessive, heat and humidity, the body doesn't cool down. So you can have heat stress. And it can even lead to heat, stroke. Now, another dimension is this. There is this aspect of the environment being protected by what you call the ozone layer. Now, with high temperatures, the ozone that actually is on this earth, that its main role is to purify the environment. But with industrialization and other agricultural activities coming up, the ozone mixes with some noxious gases known as what is called as, the fog, or smoke. Now, with higher temperatures, the concentration of ozone actually rises. And ozone is what we call a pulmonary irritant, that irritates, the upper respiratory, tract. And also there are certain people that are actually at high risk, especially people who are asthmatic. With this kind of condition that is created by increase in concentration of ozone, a pulmonary irritant, and then high temperatures, then they are at the risk of coming down with the disease more. Other related, risk factors that can lead due to increase in excessive high temperatures are cardiovascular diseases, even stroke. You have renal disease, kidney failures, CKD, chronic kidney diseases. Those ones exacerbate diabetes, all of them. So from the health aspect, these are the main concerns. Another dimension you want to look at is that the body is supposed to be hydrated. And if there is too much dehydration as a result of, high temperature, it also leads to certain skin conditions, or what we call dermatological conditions. They get exacerbated. There are other benefits, but I think let me defer to others, and then you give it another opportunity.
Indeed, we should worry, because I think it was last week or thereabouts, NIMET, in one of its daily predictions, said temperatures were likely to rise to 45 degrees in some parts of
we did release advisories on heat waves in some states, because looking at the threshold, there's what we call comfort zone for, as the doctor rightly mentioned, and we realized that the temperatures were really rising to 35 to 40 degrees in the north central, and getting 41, 42 in the extreme fringes, and these are really quite high. And having experienced some rainfall activities over the weeks ago, plus also the prevailing southwesterly winds that come from over the Atlantic Ocean, so we have a lot of moisture. And when you have water vapor or moisture in the air, plus high temperature, you have what is called feel-like temperature. And feel-like temperature is if temperature is 30 degrees Celsius and humidity is 70%. So your body will have a feel-like that the temperature is 35 to 38, because water vapor scientists knows and tells us that it holds temperature, so it holds heat. So this ability to hold the heat within the atmosphere will create additional feel-like. So even if the temperature prevailing is 30 degrees, you feel like if it is 40. And simple example is when you go to the coastal region along the coast, you feel the humidity and the discomfort very much. So I think we issued out advisories and to public and with some also specific advisories on what to do. In addition to the climate and health bulletin that we publish, we have a permanent DEX relationship with the Nigerian Center for Disease Control and the Public Health Department of the Federal Ministry of Health. And our app also, NIMET Weather app, that is available on Apple and Play Store. It has a component also of that health aspect. We intend even to be providing alert for possible meningitis and or any asthmatic potentials for the citizens of the country. But all this is to prepare the public to be more weather-wise and adopt information as other people in parts of the world takes it very serious. Before going out, you get weather information for you to plan very well.
Well, we'll also look at whether we as a people have taken these advisories as seriously as we should, because it's commonplace to say, oh, well, it's either rain or, and then we just go on at that. And all these are beginning to tell now. But we also have other reports apart from the discussion here in the studio, and we'll take the very first of those other reports now from Lokoja. This is by Francis Udojo in Lokoja.
Experts have identified human activities such as deforestation and air pollution as major causes of weather and climate change. NIMET's 2023 prediction of rainfall to begin earlier than the previous seasons, and yet with excessive rainfall within a short period of the season as a result of climate change, is already a concern for coastal states like Kogi. The recent rainstorm in Iyara Ijumu, which caused several damages, is a testament to NIMET's recent climate change prediction. The devastation at Iyara a week ago, which destroyed over 100 buildings, is an example of NIMET's prediction yet to sink in as the government is working on palliative measures.
I was out when the rain started. I was imagining what kind of rain and wind is this.
It is a thing that has really affected the state, and that is why we are in our own way to trying to see how we can be sensitized to have camps, where we normally relocate these people.
Kogi State, surrounded by hills and valleys, as well as two major rivers, Niger and Benue. The effect of excessive rainfall and eventual flooding is usually massive. Buildings without drainages and on plain ground, as well as indiscriminate waste dumping, have been identified as major accessories to flooding by experts. These practices have been discouraged while stakeholders seek solutions to manage damages and ensure safety.
There should be proper education, public enlightenment. Members of the public should be told of the dangers associated with flooding. And again, people should also be properly informed, particularly environmental officers should be vigorously involved in intensive and extensive education of the members of the public, so that all those activities that will trigger flooding should be avoided or should be mitigated.
The embankment around Kabawa area in Lokoja still remains part of effort put in place by the government to reduce the effect of flooding in the state. However, there has been little progress in completion since the floods in 2022, which will return massively this year according to NIMET's prediction. In Lokoja, Francis Sudojo.
And following the Lokoja report, we have this one by Doris Akumoye from Yenagoa.
Bayelsa State, which is surrounded by rivers and water bodies, is said to be below sea level and experience perennial flooding due to its coastal topography. The state was worst hit by the 2022 flooding, with properties and farmlands worth millions of naira destroyed.
It is now the Swambugi need to achieve results so that they will go into those very marshy areas that excavator and other tractors cannot, enter. Now they can go and they will have the required depth, so that when the water comes, the water flows through the Ikolo River and moves to the Atlantic. But we have not seen anybody anywhere walking anywhere.
With the early warning signs by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency of heavy flooding and climate change, as well as increased thunderstorms, stakeholders are worried and sue for urgent government intervention to relocate those in flood-prone areas and put modalities in place before the rains intensifies.
One other thing the government needs to do at this point is set up maybe a committee. They say they have a committee. That one was just to give relief materials to people in case of flooding. But there should be a committee that should start work at this moment, not waiting for it to get to that period when the flood will start coming. Then we start running around to open up drains when water is already everywhere.
Environmentalists who decry the level of damage in the riverine communities say its impact created erosion gullies, and several dwellers were rendered homeless, appealing to the state government to set up not just flood committees, but that of erosion as well.
NIMET also warned that the rain is going to start earlier this year. It has started. So if these things are not done now, is it when we are at the peak of the flood again? I will hear in a very sarcastic manner, Swambugis are on their way coming from Port Harcourt, and at Imbiama they are trapped with heavy flood. No.
Commissioner for Environment and the 2022 Flood Committee Chairman, Iselema Barangbiri, said government has put measures in place ahead of the prediction to cushion its impact. He disclosed that communities have been enlightened not to block water channels, as well as establishment of flood and erosion directorates to foster future occurrence.
Sand mining is one problem that has repeatedly lowered our lands and caused it to be susceptible to flooding. Again, the dropping of household waste on canals and water channels is another problem. And we ask the government through the ministry has always spend money to sensitize the people through radio, jingles, and so on. That has been very impactful. Also, we make sure the canals are cleaned up for rainwater and so on to run off the lands to the rivers and creek lakes through the canals. That we have also started the process of raising money so that we can get early to the canals before the heavy rains.
State actors believe that all hands must be on deck to reduce the issue of flooding by refraining from unhealthy environmental practices that are detrimental to the environment, as well as proper canalization to channel water to nearby creeks to reduce the suffering the people are exposed to at the peak of the flooding season. Inyenegoa Doris Sakomonye.
Two reports from two areas known for this sort of challenges and problems when it rains, the question of flooding. The case of Yenagoa being below sea level, and we see that year in, year out, Lokoja is prone to flooding and all that. We begin to ask the question of, is it that we're not adequately prepared when these things happen, given the topography of these areas? And what with all the experts that we have in various fields? Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. If we could recall the cycle of flooding in Lokoja, to be precise, 2012 and 2022. In 2012, we had about 12.8, and then last year it was about 13.2. Having taken cognizance of that particular nuisance, it was for that reason the President Buhari, Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, set up a committee chaired by, that flood committee chaired by Professor Adanu, to come up with a roadmap, a very detailed roadmap in terms of constructions of structures, which I believe the report was also ready. But the question now is, even if the report is ready, it will take not less than 30 years to implement that. And unfortunately, while the committee was working, it coincided with the election year. So I'm not sure anything has been implemented within even their work. And I'm aware that the federal government of Nigeria has also signed a collaboration with the Chinese firm that have a similar experience to study the site of River Benue and then River Niger to come up with some possible solution. Then, in furtherance to that, during the National Council of Water Resources, we discovered that issue of data generation. We always talk about River Niger, River Benue. There are feeders, and the flood in Nigeria, most of the water is not even external, it's within the country. And based on even the committee report, preliminary report that was presented, some of these activities or schedule supposed to be handled by the states. But the state require issue of awareness, advocacy, to be able to know that, in the sense that some of these, you can kill so many birds with one stone. While we are talking about water quantity in the state to supply to water corporations, you can do studies of these various micro tributaries that feed River Niger and River Benue, and then do some kind of storm dams. And these storm dams, when you do hydrological studies of them year in, year out, they could be perennial. If they are perennial, you can now convert them as public water supply, then as well as a storm dam. It was for that reason that states, a memo was presented in the National Council on Water Resources, that each state is encouraged to set up hydrology and hydrogeology department, so that while we are having those data, it will not fit what we call the catchment area, and then catchment area, it will not fit the River Basin Development Authority, which we have throughout the country, which is ongoing, so that the more the merrier. Then to also assist NIMET, because the presentation of NIMET from their stations, there are school of thoughts that for better prediction, the more the merrier. And it was even encouraged that if we go back to our about 30, 50 years ago, you discover that even a secondary school and hospital, you have a small meteorological station that you can get some kind of data.
Right, I recall that many years ago you had this.
The more the merrier. It was even agreed, I think, in one of the National Council of Water, I think you were here, you were there even in Abuja, that we encourage that even if you are doing a small water scheme or a hospital or a school, you should invite even a small hydrometeorological station. Because if you look at a case study, even where we are in Abuja, you could be in Metama, it's not raining in Garki. Yes. Or if it could be raining even in Garki with different intensity. And now, I cannot speak for the DG here. I'm not sure how many stations you have even within Abuja. I can speak for Nasarawa State, where I am operating in the State Water Agency. The whole State Water Agency, we don't have a hydrometeorological station. The one I know is for your ministry, your agency, which is in College of Agri-Glafia. And I think one was situated in the through this new map in Nasarawa State University. So a whole state, only 2 meteorological stations. So in terms of quality of data, certainly I'm not sure we're there, but at least we are coming up. So I think from last year lesson to this year, and then with the prediction that we started having rain earlier, certainly we're in for doom again this year. And we'll continue to have kind of regret. And then to go back to his earlier presentation about the issue of the health aspect. Now, with the climate change, industrialization, it leads to acid rains. When you have acid rain, it goes down. You know, when you look at the water cycle, you have a water that is acidic. Finally, it goes into the groundwater system. It can aid even weathering of the ground. It can activate some kind of reaction. There are some certain waters that in natural state, as they are, they will not constitute any nuisance. Now you have now brought kind of acidic condition, just like this water now. You now bring another water that has certain level of pH has increased, and you think certainly it's going to have also kind of repugnance to health. So there are so many challenges even in terms of the issue of climate change to that.
No, it's interesting you mentioned this because I do recall as a young boy in primary school, we had a small weather station where we actually measured the amount of rainfall. You don't see that in schools anymore, of course.
Actually, we engage in what we call school-mate program, whereby we identified more than 500 of such school gardens across the country, and we are working very hard now to revive and create a contact with such. But in the meantime, like to answer his question, in Abuja, FCT, we've established 10 additional weather stations to be able to monitor because of the topography of Abuja. And our weather station is at the airport. So many things happens uptown and you don't get them captured. And we also did that in secondary schools, whereby we call them school-mate ambassadors, and they participate in most of our activities. In addition to that, we've also gone beyond secondary school. We've done that in 128 universities, colleges of education, and polytechnics. We're killing 2 birds with that. First, to be able to increase our density of network of stations, and secondly, also aid in the training of that. Because of advancement in technology, we also use satellite data. We have radar. We have more than 500 satellite data over Nigeria, which we also interpolate with the synoptic data we have. Massively, we are working to increase this through collaboration. But just to clarify, based on his concern, this definitely, as he said, the more we have more stations, the more it will increase the precision of the forecast, one. And secondly, also, it will help us also get feedback of what happened on the ground. And by doing that, we engage communities in monitoring the weather, and that invariably will raise awareness in terms of environmental consciousness, which comes to fore when you come to climate change mitigation and adaptation that we are working on.
Okay, well, from data provided by the National Agriculture Extension Research Liaison Services, we understand that last year's flooding led to the devastation of almost 700 billion naira worth of agricultural investments and massive destruction. How much did this affect rice farms across the country?
Mr. Cyril, once you talk of floods and floods devastation, then you're already talking about rice. So I can assure you that a greater percentage of that 700 billion, as said by the agency, is affected rice farmers and rice fields. So we are in big mess, honestly. You know, I was here the other time after the floods, and we were thinking, what is the way out? We felt our farmers have already lost what they have planted, and we are thinking the government, the CBN then will come in with the Ankoboro money so that we go into the dry season farming. Unfortunately, that does not come. And today we are hit by the cash swap policy. So you see, we as farmers, honestly, we just don't know where we are going, even with the rainy season that is approaching, because so many of our members have lost everything, and up to now nothing.
Then how does this affect the rice revolution that's been talked about so much all over the place? And if you're having a situation like this,
you see, Mr. Cyril, the sustainability of every action is the end result of it. You see, once you have break, obviously there's going to be problem. So as we are saying now, there is a break as far as rice production is concerned, because a greater percentage of our farmers have incurred these losses during the floods, and up to now, honestly, nothing has come to them. And those of them that are in the upland areas, they were affected by the recent monetary changes and what have you, because they were forced to sell their produce below the market price because they need cash to do other things. So obviously, as it is now, unless the government step in immediately, there's going to be crisis as far as 2023 farming season is concerned.
And the challenges with I recall we did a program here on how to sustain this project, particularly the Ankoboros program. How far with that?
The Aqua Pro program, when we did the program, we have all agreed that it was a success. But you know, somewhere the CBN ceases to continue to fund the program. So once the funding stops, obviously it will slow down, because that was the greatest problem of agriculture in Nigeria is capital. So this is it.
Well, we'll return to you, but I like to extend where Kana Abubakar, the geologist, talked about acid rain and having this seep into the ground and perhaps polluting groundwater sources. And people are imbibing all this into their bodies. And you are described as a neurotoxicologist and regenerative medicine expert. Now, tell us the effects of this. When you have groundwater, the people's source of water supply is being polluted by acid rain and such other things. And you also know the challenges with water supply. At one point in time, boreholes were springing up everywhere. That also provided its own challenge. We'll return to you at some point in time to talk about this borehole business as well. Dr. Agbidi.
Well, Suri, in general, when you talk about health, diseases thrive best in an acidic environment. So once you hear acid, something has gone wrong. It is not right for the body. That's why these days people talk about alkaline water. And then they define the pH that it should be at about 7.4, 7.6 or 7. That is the right water. This water I'm taking here that I'm offered, if I know that the pH is, acidic, I will not take it. So when you talk about acid rains, acid rain brings about quite a number of scenarios or conditions that are kind of injurious to our health. Apart from making the water acidic, which is not good for consumption, acid rain is also responsible for what we call leaching of the minerals. If you look at it, this is what happens. The minerals actually circulate. Those from the soil, they get up into the plant, and that's why when we take plants, they will talk about the mineral balance. But when you have acid rain, it leaches these minerals into the soil. And first you have soils that become mineral deficient. Consequently, even when you grow plants on it, vegetables, whatever on it, you are no longer getting those same amount of minerals that you should be getting from those plants. That's why in these days we talk about there is need for supplementation, for nutritional supplement, because what we eat today does not contain the amount of minerals or micronutrients as it used to contain years past. A study was done in the US where they looked at levels of different minerals for a period of 50 years. Calcium, for one, was found out to have depleted in cabbage by over 60%. This is to say that that piece of cabbage with a 1 kilo that you took a year ago, if you're taking the same amount of cabbage today, the calcium content in it has been depleted by 60%. So that is the scenario about this. And again, we're also worried about what we call heavy metals. With acid water, then the soil accumulates in heavy metals like cadmium, lead, and the rest of them. And heavy metals, if you want to know, they are responsible, if we happen to take it back into our own body, they are responsible for what we call immunocompromisation. They actually suppresses our immune system. So when you want to do detoxification, you have to look for chelating agents that must remove these heavy metals from your own body.
But
thank you.
There's a chance that we'll see flooding again.
Yes, definitely. But not as huge in terms of magnitude like 2022. And I want to mention 2022 scientifically with regards to weather was a super extreme year because of what we categorize a triple deep La Nina event that happened over the global climatic system. And that has really recently shifted to neutral sea surface temperature around the Pacific. And this also is now going into, in the next few months, it will also go into another phase, and this has a stabilizing effect on the weather and climate. But even in a normal year, I will mention here that you have a period within the growing season that we experience flood. And that is when first onset season is characterized by high intensity rain with strong winds, which we have seen happening in most of the reports that we have just seen on the telly. And then also during July to September, by the time the geologist has explained how water percolates and gets the ground aquifers saturated. So between July to September, that's the peak period of the rainfall activities, and that's where you have high intensity and long duration rainstorms, and then you also have high soil moisture. Plus also inflows by these tributaries, both within the micro watershed within the country and outside the country. So combining this together also leads to either flash floods due to high intensity rain, and then also bad land management practices, and then also riverine floods due to overcharging of most of these rivers. But we are collaborating with Nigerian Emergency Management Agency. We are meeting next week to be able this year to cascade the focus and the implication with regard to potential risks and disasters to state level. But At the state level, definitely I want to mention that we need an entry point. And these entry points are the state governments and state governors. And it's very important if state governments take this focus and own it, and then we can really reach to the last mile. And that is our prayer.
How have states been in this matter?
We've tried severally through the Nigerian Governors Forum and using different platforms. But we've gotten quite some improvement from the previous scenario, but we need to do more, actually, because the main essence of focus is to reach the last mile, and the last mile are the users, and these users are located in the districts, in communities, and clans within a local government, and these are based in state and local government areas. We've had some previous collaboration with development partners like IFAD and some other FGN projects. But when you look at the implication and the impact of that, you're only intervening in some selected target communities for that project. I'll give an example of IFAD CAS project in the north and IFAD Live ND project in the south. And recently we've signed an MOU with Federal Ministry of Agriculture, and we are targeting 10 states. But all these things needs clear cooperation and then ownership by the state governments, whereby we can have all the agri extension officers from all the local governments, plus the climate change agents, and then lead farmers. We can group them together in a state and cascade the focus to that state level and come up with what we call a crop calendar for the farmers. And in that crop calendar, it gives information on what to do from land clearing to harvesting. And it gives can give a focus of the yield that the farmer could have. I think what is missing is coordination, especially at the vertically at the state and local government levels. And that is where all these hazards and the disasters happens, unfortunately.
Well, there's also an issue with flash flooding, really. And then, as the DG mentioned here, poor land management practices. And, of course, other activities, human activities, have also exacerbated the situation. Now, we will see that even urban centers like Abuja are also prone to flash flooding because of the way either land is managed or some other environmental factors. And what's the best way out of this?
Thank you very much for the question. Actually, the issue of the flash floods, which we refer to as urban flooding, which generally is caused by man-made, that's anthropogenic activities. Now, another issue again is the issue of lack of interagency collaboration, because issue of flood or water management is interministerial. Now, in the state level, you have the Ministry of Lands. Now you have the State Water Agency, which controls all the waters, including the runoffs, because all the rains that fall on the roof finally goes onto the gutter and then finally into the river. So it is the State Water Agency that's supposed to manage that. But then you have the Ministry of Environment. Now, that's in the state. You have the urban development boards, which are in charge of development controls. Sometimes they don't meet. There is no any clearinghouse. You discover that His Excellency might earmark a particular land for a particular project. Now, not minding that that particular area is just left fallow because of existing data from either NIMET or NISA or the geology of that particular area. That area, they are just natural buffers in terms of if there is any excess water to flow there. Now, he just gives approval, they'll just give CO4. Development control are there, they don't collaborate with the State Water Agency. Now, this development sometimes is supposed to be in conjunction related to the geology, because geology is a factor for runoff. Areas where you have is porous, you have lower chances of flood because the water will be percolating down. Areas where it is indurated, you have runoff. You have a runoff, then you have development impeding the movement of the flow. Yes. So now there's a need for that collaboration. In the state level, you discover that you are having NIMET prediction, you have a nicer annual flood outlook. You see that Water Corporation are there or the Ministry of Environment are there. That's why if you look at most of the background reports, I'm not sure there was any contribution from any state water agency who are the managers of even the water. It is always the Ministry of Environment. And Ministry of Environment don't work with the water agencies who are in charge of the both surface water, groundwater, and then the runoff, and then the hydrometeorological aspect of the institution. Then having said that, from his earlier presentation of that this year, the likelihood of having flood in terms of intensity from last year is going to be lower based on empirical data. But I want to look at it from different perspective. Last year is an abnormal year, whereby water level has reached up. So as we speak, the flood reached in some areas up to around November. And now we assume on paper, the water has not actually finally receded and you started having rains in February. It means the land has not actually stabilized and it has started having contribution. So if you start having contribution, what is the chances that the area is not going to be fully saturated to lead to this particular...
And water will find its level.
Find its level. Then having said this again, you could recall some of the program we had last year in terms of even the structures. Some of the structures that were destroyed last year. What lessons have we learned? Have we actually mended most of those structures? That one, I cannot be able to speak on that because the whole thing has affected virtually all the states up to local government levels. So we need to come back on deck to be able to discuss. Then to go further again, in way of dissemination of NISA and the NIMET prediction. Yes, they have beautiful submission. How does it trickle down? I forgot to mention the issue of collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture because you cannot be talking about food. You talk about water and food security. They are interwoven. And now, interestingly, July's earlier presentation, during the ADPs, you have extension workers up to community level. But the question now is, even if you revive that particular program, you have an extension worker, how literate is he? And then the issue of public relation to that particular community. One will expect that the NIME report should be in a language of layman so that they could give it to such an officer to explain to a farmer, either rice farmer or any kind of farmer. Then in the state water agencies, the structure is state water agencies, you have area offices. You have area offices, and with the area offices is another means of distribution of most of these activities. Right. But most of the officers at that level, their level of literacy is very low. So which means a lot of more work, a lot of funding should be given to NISA, NIMET, and then even NOA, so that that NOA is another platform again for you to be able to give it to them.
Well, I see the DG NIMET is coming with a number of these publications. And, well, while I see one or two of them in English, it looks like others are not in English.
Yeah, actually, if you may allow, I will raise that up. Yeah, actually, we've presented the forecast by the Honorable Minister on the 23rd of January, early enough to give this enough lead time. So we're trying to capture all the strata in the society. So this is for decision makers, which is very handy, and you can even put it in the pocket. And it contains information in all the 774 local government areas of the country. And it was also presented to the Federal Executive Council by our Honorable Minister last 2 weeks. Okay. But this is the main document, the seasonal climate prediction, having all the sectors. Surprisingly, Nigerian socioeconomic sectors are all climate influence, and so we provide the focus in the 774 local government areas, and then we also provide advisories, sectoral advisories, health, environment, very passionate about agriculture. Right. So for agriculture, we provided advisories for rain-fed, for irrigated, and livestock also keeping. So we went further to translate this into 3 major languages. I think this is Yoruba, Asotele, I guess. Yeah. So this is the Igbo version of it, and of course the Hausa version is also and all these are available on our website, and they are also all the information from the 774 local governments are available also on the app that we've created by our own ICT staff. And we went further also to document some changes of weather across the country and then in the state of climate prediction. So we do also have some sectoral. This is the AgroMed bulletin. We do that every 30 days and then relate to main stakeholders every 10 days. This is the climate and health bulletin. And then this is also Hydromed bulletin, which we now release to NISA to be able to serve as input into their own. And also, just to cap this, we came up with a one-stop publication on climate change. And this was also released by our Honorable Minister in January. And this cut across all the eco-climatic zones of the country, providing vulnerability, impact, mitigation, and adaptation. And all the data are from NIMET, about 130 data. We don't want to rely on any foreign literature to determine that there is climate change in Nigeria. So NIMET established that there is local indicators for climate change, and we're also work with partners to profile adaptation and mitigative actions.
These publications are available all through?
Yeah, they are available on our website, and also the app is free. It doesn't require any private information. You can just download it, NIMET Weather app. And just last week, we've got visitors from CBN. Surprisingly, they gave us a shocker that we have saved them 120 billion last year. And we asked how. And they confessed that they heeded to our advisories of flood and thereby withdrew to release that amount of money for rice farmers. And this has saved the country and the economy and CBN 120 billion naira. And this is a typical example of how the benefit of uptaking and heeding to weather and climate advisories. Sorry for this, I took some time to...
It's okay.
Yeah,
well, at this point, we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll go to that other segment of the program where you can join in the conversation in the studio. And of course, hopefully, we will take some more reports from across the country. So stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. We're taking a look at the NIMET predictions for 2023 and what's been done to forestall any disaster that might arise from the climate, from the weather, and from excessive rainfall and flooding. Now, this segment, the phone lines will be open and you can get to join in the conversation in the studio. The numbers will be on your screens. Take advantage of them. We always say this. If you're calling in tonight, do us a favor. Turn down the volume of your TV set to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And keep it short and straight to the point. And we encourage you not to bother too much about the greetings. Just a mere hello would do. So keep those calls coming so we can have a more robust conversation. But we also have other reports here. And this next one is by Kemi Oshi from Ibadan.
About 2,000 to over 2,600 millimeters of rainfall has been predicted in Oyo State between April to November 2023, a range higher than that of last year, thereby putting the state among those standing risk of flooding as a result of extreme surface runoff. With a history of perennial flooding, Oyo State government promised renewed commitment to flood prevention under the watch of Governor Seyi Makinde.
Yes, there's a drainage master plan for Oyo State under the Ibadan Urban Flood management projects. By the time we're able to get all the projects under the IUFMP executed, the issue will be dealt with, and it is only then that coming rainy season, won't be any problem for us.
In keeping with this promise, the state government, through the Ibadan Urban Flood Management Project IUFMP, has commenced dredging of river channels and construction of bridges across Ibadan and other parts of the state to allow free flow of water during heavy downpour. This, experts say, is the right step in the right direction.
The environment cannot shape itself. It's human beings that shape the environment through our actions and inactions. So we have to take prompt actions in ensuring that the downpour does not cause much havoc. There is need for a comprehensive development plan to be prepared by government for all towns and cities, including rural communities. Government should encourage those media houses in sensitizing and enlightening members of the public on our actions, activities, behaviors, and all the rest, physical development in our environment. We need to go out to do all these things so that people will know what their actions and inactions, especially in the area of physical development and waste management is concerned.
They, however, noted the need for continued sensitization and enforcement of government policies to prevent harmful environmental practices as well as reduce the negative impact in case of flooding.
As Ibadan is extending, the environmental issues are rising on a daily basis. In fact, dumping of refuse, flood, indiscriminate dumping of refuse and flood, whatever, they have become rampant now. And because even the environment is changing, it is imperative for us to also adapt to the environment by ensuring environmental sanitation.
It is the gentlemen and ladies of the press that pass the message, to the very last mile user. The expectations from them to ensure that we are able to prevent flooding, and if it happens, what they should do to ensure that their lives are not jeopardized.
For an agrarian society such as Oyo State, the increase in rainfall predicted by NIMET could be a blessing in form of enough moisture for agriculture and potable water if dams are effectively monitored and discharged adequately, so they don't add to surface rainwater. In Ibadan, Kemiyoshi.
And next, Usman Shehu brings us this report from Birnin Kebbi.
Kebbi State is one of the northern states that has a peculiarity for being extremely during various weather seasons. So it did not come as a surprise when the Nigerian Meteorological Agency came up with the recent prediction that temperature will rise in this part of the country. The heat is high here already, and people are sleeping outside, defying the stings of mosquitoes and other insects. And unusually this year, it was a miracle that there was no outbreak of meningitis or any other heat-related ailment. For the farmers, especially rice farmers, the story is a blessing and full of hope for bumper harvest. But the meteorologists attribute it to climate change. Surprisingly, the heat forced down a torrential rainfall that brought a sigh of relief to the people a few days. But this did not last, and the heat can sometimes be as high as 103 degrees on the Fahrenheit scale of temperature.
19,000, 20,000. This year it's almost 30,000. So this heat season is different. Despite the heat temperature,
the weather is still conflicting with much hot and windy. I can't remember any of such season. It has never been easy with this fasting and the weather. This heat season is too much. One must look for some shelter at all the time. The weather is too much. As a farmer, our rice is growing so well, but we are also feeling it when we are working.
Well, experts again say this is artificial, but when the rain comes, people should expect a heavy downpour and even a large degree of flooding.
At the moment, we are still in the dry season, but we have a short reversal in the wind. And because our environment is fertile, we have the temperature. When such wind arrives, you have convective activity, so you have cloud formation and rain. But sadly, this is not a start of the rainfall.
What is the way out?
Of our rainfall concentrated, so we are likely to have a high amount of rainfall concentrated within a short period, and that could breed any rainfall related hazard.
In 2020, I lost more than 200 bags of rice. The whole crop that I have planted, just 5 days to start harvesting, the flood has come. Unfortunately, there's so much, the crops, I was not able to get even one bag of rice. Men should come and intervene to assist us so that at least if the farmers of this country can get support, I'm sure we can feed the whole Africa.
Meteorologists are hoping that people will take weather information more seriously and use it for their planning purposes and disaster risk reduction, which are more than 90% climate-induced. In Birnin Kebbi, Usman Abdullahi Shehu.
All right, back in the studio here, we have a guest here. We've seen the report from Ibadan. And Birnin Kebbi, reminds us of what we saw from the earlier ones as well. But this part of it, we're talking about what the farmers can do now to forestall the kind of losses that they experienced from the floods of last year. So how prepared are you for what may happen?
Mr. Cyril, Nigeria is a blessed country. When you look at the predictions, by the beginning of March, we'll be seeing rain up to the early December, which means we are going to have a rainfall of about 9 months period, scattered across the entire length of the country. So which means we are blessed by nature or by God as an agricultural country, because we can have 3 harvests comfortably within the rainy days, and then 1 harvest or 2 during the dry season. If we take advantage of this, it's going to be a good thing for us. Our population is growing very fast. What we are doing now, we are sensitizing our farmers. We are calling on them to go back to the land, continue the best they have been doing for this country. And they should see themselves performing a patriotic responsibility of feeding this country. This country needs the food we produce as farmers, but we can't do it alone. You have seen how Anko Borrower program has transformed the entire agricultural landscape. So which means with sustainability in government programs, we can achieve whatever we set to achieve as far as agriculture is concerned. We alone, honestly, as farmers, we cannot do it alone. We really need the intervention of government and other aid agencies so that we'll be able to produce for this country the required food.
Now, you do have varieties in agriculture that resilient, they can withstand dry periods and all that. And so we're looking on the other hand, you also have varieties that can survive periods where you might have floods.
This is the beauty of the predictions, because the predictions give you an opportunity to determine a lot of your activities during the agricultural during your agricultural activities. It gives you the opportunity to determine what to plant, when even to put on your fertilizers, and what have you. So the condition is there. But as we are saying, the support of the government in this is very, very important and critical, because the food security of a nation should just not be left to the farmers alone. We all should come on board and see what we can do for this country.
Well, we have a caller on the line already. Abbas, who's calling in from Abuja. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, my name is Abbas Ibu. I'm calling from Abuja, and I want to commend NIMET for the early release of the focus and what is the early warning. But the problem we are having is that the states are not really into this early warning. And as long as the states will not ease into this, we are going to have problems persistently, because a mining disaster is bottom up. It's supposed to start from the local government, state government, and then the federal government. And at this time, because of the political activity, we have forgotten all about the flood that we had in the previous year, and no plan to even manage the 2023. Despite the fact that NIMET is always releasing the early warning without the early action from the respective government. So we need to really work hard, and we need to wake up from our sleep. 2023, if care is not taken, is going to be worse than 2022. No action has been taken. We're supposed to have been prepared by now. All the agencies responsible are supposed to start really working now. There's assessment. There is nothing showing that really we are working towards solving the problems. And at the end of the day, we will now be blaming either release of water for Cameroon or something else. So we really need to sit up, and we need to invest in that field. Otherwise, every year we keep repeating. What had happened in 2022? What have we done? Is there anything to show that we have really to work again what really caused the flooding last year? And what do we do? What is the action plan that we have that is going to really manage or mitigate any flooding that is coming? Most of the flooding that we are having are not really natural flooding. They are human-induced flooding. Are we sensitizing the public on what to do and what not to do? These are the activities that we're supposed to embark ourselves, and we have to go into. Now, NIMET has made this simple. Everything they have simplified the models. They have made everything in different dialects, and they have gone cascaded it down to the masses, only for states to take it off and go to the grassroots and then do the needful. So we are always talking about flooding until it comes. Then we can't be able to do anything at the end of the day. Then our lives will be lost, our farmlands will be washed away, and then we'll not be lamenting. So I am calling on all the state governments, because that is the issue. NIMET has done its own as early as possible. NISA has also identified those flood-prone areas. Those things have been. Then it's left for the respondents, and through the state emergency management agency, the local emergency management agency, and the national emergency management agency, to ensure that we do the needful and ensure that we sensitize the public, and we go out to ensure that we take the hazard mapping of all the areas that are prone to flooding, and then we mark them and ensure that we do the needful. That is my own take. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Abbas. Thank you so much. Dr. Toagbidi, it's all intertwined and situate for us. Poor environment, living in a poor environment, even without the floods coming, without pollution of drinking water, without the heat wave, living in a very poor environment, and in such conditions as we see, especially in slums, in cities, even in Abuja, the capital city of the country.
Well, Siri, thanks very much. The truth is this, all that we're talking about, climate change, with emphasis on, heat wave, and if we don't have our own health, we wouldn't even be alive to be talking about these things. So, in retrospect, it is very important for the government and all the people. And what I normally tell people is that your health is an investment. It is not an expenditure. So in as much as we talk about government, take personal responsibilities for some of these things. We know the government has the capacity, the guidelines, and the resources. And that's why we say government owes us a responsibility. Personally, I'm really saddened when I see the situation that confronts us now. When you talk about flooding and flooding, because the climate change, there is nothing we can do. It is a global, trend. Just like in the United States now, it used to be a ratio of 1 to 1. That is the amount of the time that you are in cold and the time that it is, hot. But now that ratio has been skewed to about 1 to 4. So let's look at the flood, which you have emphatically put forward. There are responsibilities. There is only the government that has that can do that, what we call mass and critical mobilization of our resources. This can be by way of provision of dams. We need this water. The water can be effectively put into all year season farming. But year in, year out, we crying the wolf. Then sometimes it's a bit like Cameroon has opened up their own dam, and that's why we're having floods. Come on. Something got to be done. Let us really hold the bulls by the horn.
All right. We get back to the phones. Hisham from Gombe is calling in. Hello?
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening.
Good evening.
Tuesday Live. My name is Hisham Ibrahim, calling from Gombe. Precisely, actually, I'm happy with the immensely contribution done by NIMET agency. It happens that NIMET is a serious, very, very serious agency who are working toward closely to the improvement of betterment of Nigerian economy. So I would like to deem it necessary to make contribution to this program to note the prediction that NIMET did last year, which I feel it very, very necessary to make a contribution, that it has made serious impact by releasing the data or prediction in the earlier time, which pave a way for people concerned to make preparation ahead of danger. So I don't know what many of our state governments are doing towards responding to NIMET's prepared weather forecast ahead of danger. Especially, I can make some reference with some states I have seen, which forecast has been made to them for either on a flood-prone disaster, but at last you won't see any any response from such governments unless waiting for the event to happen, which is unwanted. And again, this climate agency that I'm seeing, in fact, once you pick on one radio or the other,
Okay, well, Sham. Well, I think we lost the call midway, but he's made the point. And again, there's so much concentration at the center, people are looking to the federal government. But the states, you know, we've had many saying the states ought to take ownership of some of these things and show more seriousness in preparing for any eventual disaster, but we're not seeing that happening. Yes.
Okay. I want to intervene in the issue of the irrigation to achieve food security. We talked about the full cycle. I'm skeptical about that.
All right.
The reason being, if you could recall last year, we had flood, and now if you look at the hydrological data of the extent of the flooding or the flood from the river, either left or right. We have the data, which currently NISA is installing gauges in most of the rivers now. But you know, they cannot go around. So now, if, for instance, this is a river moving, and the last year's rains, it moves up to about 20 meters to the boundary. And now, with the early rains this year, it means if you want to achieve 4-year cycle, you are in jeopardy. I don't know how you reconcile that, because it means you are going to be irrigating on a potential area that was once flooded last year, if you have to do it four times. Because this particular area is a bit far from the water. And most of the irrigation practice we do, especially first 3 months of the year, is closer to the rain. So there is a need for you to sit to that particular warning, because there are gauges now being installed, areas where you cannot farm particular time of the year. So you mustn't be over-ambitious to say you want to achieve food security, then you want to do 4-year cycle. You can achieve that using the genetic engineering, which I think one of the speakers mentioned. You can use genetic engineering crops that can germinate within a short period of time. Then, having said that, the issue of the CBN, yes, has contributed a lot in different sectors of the economy in terms of empowerment. Now, from my own perspective now, since the CBN has commended NIMET of their data, now data is money. I want CBN to start spend a lot of money on training of hydrometeorologists in the country, key into the university, even the extension working, those particular gaps, if there is a way they can dedicate some money for that. Then another one again is even the multinationals. You have the Dangote group in Nasarawa on the river depth, at the end of foot of River Benue upstream of Makodi. Now they are farming sugarcane there. You have the Olam farming rice. That's why rice price has gone up, because of the devastation of last year. They are operating within the River Mada corridor. Now, why not those companies putting into their business plan to be able to create the issue of the dam we're talking about, so that instead of coming to put a lot of money on the farm, you can also mitigate by investing upstream to reduce the inflow of this particular water, to reduce this nuisance, because it has destroyed even the entire land in terms of even agronomical potential, because the water that came wash up the top. Now they have to start trying to regenerate the land and then start planting again. Why can't they put it as part of their business plan? I've just given 2 examples now, and different corridors in the country. Then, having said that, you are talking about the issue of collaboration with the state. Yes, there is an ongoing project. There's transformation of irrigation management in Nigeria, which has brought its multidisciplinary approach, whereby you have the irrigation experts, you have the hydrologists, civil engineers, etc., working within the same basket. Because the reason is that if you are talking about irrigation, it's water. You are talking about water production to the town, it's also water. Aesthetics is some water. There must be somebody there to be able to appropriate for water, proper water management, for water economics and the rest. So this has been done because it has been observed that some of the waters that have been earmarked 40, 50 years ago for the purpose of irrigation, now with the population increase, those waters cannot be able to support irrigation because of the population in the town for the purpose of treatment. So you can now see now the issue of competition now within the same water. You are in the agricultural sector, you want this water for irrigation, the town is increasing. So the priority is on water supply. So this ongoing project is there, which has brought, I think they did trimming 1. It's already sponsored by World Bank. We are now on trimming 2. I happen to be part of that particular project. I said, let me give this particular information.
All right, that's interesting. You talked about that, but yes.
Mr. Cyril, when I talk of full harvest in a season, I was talking of the
growing season.
Growing season of 9 months. So if we have a growing season of 9 months, you can have 3 harvests of good variety of maize and rice. The river banks, we don't use river banks to produce during the rainy season. We use the residual moisture of the river banks after the floods, and then we plant. That is what we use. And I want to say one thing. Mr. Cyril, as long as we don't see rainwater as a natural resource, we may likely not get it right. This is a natural resource. Some countries don't allow their rainwater to flow into the sea. They harvest the water. We have abundance of land. We have abundance of forests that are even infested with bandits. We can redirect these flood waters into these forests, dump them, and use them for irrigation.
All right. Well, you just mentioned it.
So the thing is, let us sit down.
You have to dislodge them first from.
Let us tell ourselves the truth.
Okay.
That is it.
We have another caller on the line, Olatunde calling in from Lagos. Hello, Olatunde.
Olatunde from Lagos. We have another caller. Hello.
Yes, go ahead, Olatunde.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening. Yeah,
Right, Olatunde, are you there? Right, call dropped. Well, that's it. Well, that's another way as we begin to look at what can be done to mitigate any disaster arising from these predictions. Well, you see, they are predictions, all right. Some may come to pass, unfortunately. And some may not, in which case we'll say mercifully it didn't happen this year. But again, there has to be adequate preparation for any eventuality.
Exactly. Yeah, you know, we in our previous program here, I used to mention that we're in the era of climate change, and as a country, we have to key in all ramification to be able to adapt to these changes, and then also see how we can, from our action, activities, and programs, how we can mitigate. And let's say United Nations Secretary General's statement that all nations in the world in the next 5 years, all citizens in this globe should be able to have access to early warning. And that is one effective way of mitigating. And that is what, for us in NIMET, we've been doing with relevant enabling MDS, and which are very critical in the value cycle. But the missing link is getting to the users as quickly as possible, because this vital focus, prediction, information, advisories, they are perishable in nature, and which requires a very fast approach and effective coordination. So in this, for us in NIMET as scientists, we are leveraging on technology so that we reach out to the users as quickly as possible through USSD code, SMS, through our app. And just last week, we had a meeting with the CBN, and we're targeting 20 million farmers on how to give them tailored forecast site-specific tailored forecast and monitor the performance of that. And with this, definitely we're going to see improvements in yield and also reduction in some of the risk.
Tailored forecast for about 20 million farmers.
Yes,
That's exactly. Specific.
Exactly.
So we'll speak more on that. But let's take this call from Adugun, calling in from Kwara. Hello, Adugun.
Hello.
Go ahead.
God bless you, sir.
Go ahead.
Concerning the presidential election, most governments, the state governments, they throw their hands. There has to be a lot of sensitization. Sometimes, often, when you see rain is falling, you see people dropping refuse on the canal. So all these things are blocked. There's no how if flood is coming. The drainage that has been blocked, how will water pass through? Then the state government, they made a lot of sensitization. Like let's say the civil defense, the police, Ministry of Environment, they need to come in and sensitize the people so that we can curb this flooding. Then the master plan, the urban and regional planning, they are not doing anything. Where houses not to be, they build house there. So we need a lot of sensitization and proactiveness that when this flood is coming, we'll be able to curb it.
All right.
That's my contribution, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Adugun from Kwara. And again, the whole thing goes back to what he is rooting for proper land management and proper planning cities. And we mentioned a bit about it before as part of the activities, human activities that can lead to especially flash floods. Another aspect of it in water management also has to do with what has been referred to as the indiscriminate drilling of boreholes. I do understand that in Abuja here now there is a restriction on that, but you still find this going as around as this only source of water.
Thank you very much. Actually, even the restriction you're talking about, how restrictive has it been? Because how do you restrict somebody? Which law are you using to restrict that particular person? You are aware of the Water Bill 2020, which has gone to 8th Assembly, 9th Assembly. Up to now, it's in the state of quagmire. Incidentally, last week, I presented a paper in the Nigerian Minor Geoscience Society conference, and the topic is development monitoring and the legislative imperatives of the water sector from 1914 to date, which this particular question is embedded in that. As long as that water bill, which has been misunderstood due to laziness of us in this country from reading, it's a document that is just less than 80 pages. But a lot of people have not read, but they give different kind of connotation on it. In that particular bill, there's this issue of licensing, of even the operator. You as a person need to be licensed. You must have a seal to operate. Even the machine itself need to be licensed to do that. It's all encapsulated in that. So as long as the water bill is not passed, it's going to affect the issue of water management, water appropriation, water economics, leading to other environmental nuisance. We read it in the media a few weeks ago during the World Water Day, which was widely celebrated. Honorable Minister was in with top government functionary in the US to celebrate that. Some people attributed issue of that possible indiscreet drilling could lead to earthquake, which is misleading. It's not. Where you have earthquake, you have what we call the Benel zone. Okay. Nigeria is not within those unstable areas because the whole world is aggregation of different places when you do plate tectonics. So that's how the world. So we don't fall on that. And wherever you're having earthquake, it all happen in the southern part of Turkey. The geology there it's a different aspect of geology. And it does not.
I think I'd want to come back to this because it's an interesting angle you're raising. But let's get this call from Solomon, who's calling in from Port Harcourt. Solomon, go ahead.
I salute
submit on.
Right, thank you.
My name is Solomon from Patako.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. My question goes to Professor Mwanzi. So please, the issue of releasing water from the dam, how can people be sensitized about the releasing of water from the dam? And what period of the year? For example, if the water is released every 3 years, how can we, as India ministry of rather agency, sensitizing the public about the release of water from the dam? And there is this water release from Cameroon dam, which as a cross-border problem of flooding has created more problems for us in Nigeria. While we are battling with the internal flooding and problems associated with it, we are receiving a cross-border flooding. And while I was watching the 10 program 2 days ago, one gentleman mentioned the fact that Cameroon derailed. Has the matter been taken up with the ECOWAS? How is it being addressed? If the matter has not been taken up by the ECOWAS, why are they keeping mute about it? Because it is really a big problem for the people down here, especially in Bayelsa and the coastal region. The flooding was massive, that the motorable roads are no longer motorable. Houses were floating, vehicles were floating as a result of that flooding. Farmers lose their products. Even fishes suffered. The oceans were crying as well. So please, Professor, how can this problem be addressed? And the issue of that particular issue of that children letting of water from their dam, which one of the participants of this program said that the Cameroon people they offended us and they need to be sanctioned.
Okay.
So I don't know whether everyone has taken up that matter.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Solomon. Well.
Okay, yeah, let me...
Yeah, well...
yeah, actually, we're in the Federal Ministry of Aviation, and their mandate is to provide forecast advisories to all citizens and government on issues of weather, climate, and water-related. So in this case, this is beyond, we are not managing the Nigerian dams, but what we do, we give weather forecast information for these dam authorities. And also we have excellent working relationship with the Federal Ministry of Water Resources, and in particular Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, who they consume our product directly to be able to come up with the annual flood outlook. And in the long term, also we can provide what is called a return period of floods. My brother mentioned the 2012 right. and the 2022. So having data of about 130 years over Nigeria since 1887, we conduct time series and trend analysis, and we can see return period of extreme events such as flood, drought, and other extreme events. So I think Nigerian Hydrological Services, they have the monitoring network of this, and also I know there's a MOU signed by Cameroonian authorities. So actually it's not within our mandate, but we provide support services for that. But what we know is that whenever there's going to be a release of water, people should be sensitized, and then also NEMA is helping to create a flood risk map so that people get sensitized and then also evacuate if there's any imminent flood. So actually is not within our mandate.
Right. And just to add this to Solomon, the fact that the last program we did on climate change and flooding, we actually had as one of our guests the Director General of the Nigerian Hydrological Services, who gave more insight into the kind of arrangement they have with the Cameroonian authorities with regards to the release of water from Lagdo Dam, which is what you're referring to. So that, of course, has been in the purview of the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency. which handles that. And the DG had spoken about that on one of our programs. In fact, he's been on a number of programs here at NTA, going from Tuesday Live to Good Morning Nigeria, and even to One on One, where they've spoken of how Nigeria and Cameroon have been collaborating to mitigate this, the effect of the release of water from Lagdo Dam in Cameroon, which also contributes to the flooding that we have experienced in some parts of the country. Okay, that's as far as that's concerned here. Yes, yes, please.
Okay. In addition to what we have said, there is what we call the Niger Basin Commission and then the Lake Chad Commission.
Right.
So the Benue aspect falls under the Lake Chad Basin Commission, which there are a lot of international arrangements on that. And as part of the implementation is that there's what we call the early warning. So there is what we call resident time. There's a time when they release the water, it takes a certain number of days or certain number of hours for it to reach Nigeria. And now the technologies has shown where certain gadgets are being installed to be able to give people early warning to move to safety. Having said that again, now as part of the National Committee on Flood, which the Mr. President has set up, there is a proposal whereby within the Lake Chad to recharge the Lake Chad that has receded from its original size to 1/3. Initially, the initial proposal was to draw water from River Congo to pass to traverse several countries, because he mentioned the issue of ECOWAS to come and now recharge the Chad Basin. So now there is even a proposal now, since this water, the aspect that is within the Nigerian corridor, why not channel it to Nigerian side of the Chad Basin to recharge? That is part of the report. I don't want to preempt that, but it's just an information purpose. So maybe as soon as those kind of things are done, then most of these things, the nuisance is going to be minimized. Just for information.
In the final minutes of this program, let's turn attention, at least for a while, to other activities that can help. Yes, we have government agencies that are in charge of sensitizing the people, NIMET bringing out the predictions, and the consumers of all this information. Again, we go back to them. How do they respond to it? Farmers, for instance, you have said that your association, the Rice Farmers Association, for instance, you benefit a lot from these predictions and you actually take them seriously. But let's look at farmers generally across board and how they respond to issues of flooding and some of these predictions, where you have year in, year out, people who have had floods wash away their farmlands and still insist on those flood-prone areas to carry out their agricultural activities.
Mr. Cyril, the response is very poor. And let me be honest with you, it's one of the reasons is poverty. Poverty in the sense that these flood plains, you don't need much fertilizer to cultivate them. So the farmers feel, if I leave this place, where do I go to? That is one. Two, illiteracy. So many of these guys resist change because of their level of education. That is where the issue of state government recruiting extension service agents is very, very important. These guys, as we have witnessed during the World Bank days of the ADPs, the agricultural extension officers melt into these communities and they become part and parcel of them. They so much cherish them, they listen to them. But today, these guys are not there. It's so unfortunate. And this is one we need the most. Because today, agriculture doesn't have a greater challenge than climate change. And the best guys that can do this job are the agri-extension service agents who will go to these villages. These guys listen to them more than any other person because they are part and parcel of them. So we are doing our best as an association to tell them, to educate them on the importance of listening to science, on the importance of using these predictions and advisories to avoid losses that you have been facing for quite a long time. But you know, illiteracy.
Right. Well, on the final note, Dr. John Towagbidi, we refer to the advisories that we've had from NIMET, including the one about extreme temperatures, and the advice that people should stay hydrated when they experience such high temperatures. How key is this information in maintaining health? Perhaps we'll hear it once more from regenerative medicine expert.
Well, thank you very much, Siri. The truth is, as I earlier said, our health is in our hands. I think that is one of the programs that NTA has too. Having said that, climate change is a reality. We've discussed mainly two aspects. They had that aspect of, heat wave that actually kills. A caveat to that is that, especially in this part of the world, where the socio-economically underprivileged, they don't have access to air conditioners and all this. So when there is heat wave, they are really affected. They should really watch out. In the village, like I was home during this last holidays, I slept out. It was really very good. So we must learn to protect ourselves, especially those who are socioeconomically underprivileged. They don't have access to air conditioners. They should learn to stay away, how they can protect themselves from heat wave. And in cases of the other dimension, which is drought, that is associated with waterborne diseases, we should be very, very careful. If that happens, we must learn how to boil our water properly before we drink, so that we don't get waterborne diseases. Meanwhile, we continue to pray and also advise the private sector that they should help us, solve this problem by creation of dams to avoid floods, and then we're taking care of ourselves, taking our health in our hands.
All right, and we keep the flutes. I see you've come to the studio holding your own water.
Yes. So if you want to know, this is what I use. This is actually hydrogen water.
So you're well prepared.
Yes.
But it's cool in here. So
but I need to be hydrated too. Yeah.
Right. Well, it is on that note we conclude this conversation. I always say that no one program can take care of all the issues. It's a continuing process. I would like to thank our guests so much for coming on this program. Professor Mansour Bako Matazu, Director General, Nigerian Meteorological Agency. It's always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks so much.
And of course, we are always happy when we have the geologists with us. You've been on many of our programs. Now, we appreciate you, Kana Ahmed Abubakar, for sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you so much. And Shehu Muazu, National Coordinator, Special Projects, Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria. We appreciate your contributions tonight. Thank you for giving us that angle into agricultural practices and the importance of these predictions. Thank you so much. And Dr. John Towagbidi, Founder, CEO, In-Country Medicare, neurotoxicologist and regenerative medicine expert. Thank you so much too.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you too for being part of this program. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stover. Continue to stay safe.